Hey guys, let's keep talking about what you can expect from the Rolemaster family of RPGs. These are going to be very, these are going to be very skill-driven games for the most part. Okay, um, you have 10 stats in any version that I'm aware of Rolemaster. Some of them are mental, some of them are physical, and a couple are actually kind of both, like self-discipline. I guess it's mostly mental quality, but it has such an effect on your physical stature. Um, the stats can provide bonuses to your skills, as will potentially your level, combined with what profession you are. But very rarely will you hear, unless they just have a very strong OSR kind of root to them, very rarely will you hear a GM, in my experience, um, asking for a stat check or something like that. Well, at the very least, that's not how I play it. If there's a skill for it, I'm having you roll a skill. Um, it's not really a question of whether or not you have it or not. There's probably a skill for it because the game can have a lot of skills. Um, Buying skills is point based, so the different the different types of Rolemaster have different ways to get the number of points, and you'll spend them however you want. What determines the cost of a skill is what's called your profession. Now, side note here, a lot of confusion probably with this for anyone coming from any other system. Professions are essentially your class. They don't call it your class, they call it your profession. However, the Rolemaster profession, or class concept, if you will, is not about what you're being trained in. It's not about what you're doing. It's not like an OSR game where that one line right under your name and race, you're a human, George the human, defines what you do so strongly mechanically in the party. In Rolemaster, a profession is to represent what you naturally find easy to learn and what you naturally find difficult to learn. Now that will probably push you towards certain things because you will find more success in them. And that easy to learn and hard to learn is represented by, well, how much does this skill cost for you to improve? A fighter profession's first weapon skill is going to be 1 point per rank for the first rank every level, whereas a magician's is going to be 9 points. That's when you're dealing with, say, 30-ish points. That's a significant chunk. However, the magician can pick up spells very cheaply, and the fighter has to spend a lot of points. So, but you could have someone going through life, in the armed forces, if you will, being a city guard with a sword and a shield, and just always the end of his class, his evaluation is always mediocre at best, and he's just struggling in life. And then he picks up a spell and is like, "Oh, this is easy." I've never seen anyone make a character like that, but it's possible. You can tell a character's life like that. You can have them have a life story like that, or an NPC's, because they spent years just spending so much time trying to figure stuff out, i.e. spending a lot of points, that just wasn't coming easy to them. As a side effect of that, you don't multi-class and you don't switch classes in Rolemaster. There are plenty of people who've come up with home rules, probably because of their OSR influences, but you do not multi-class or switch classes. You can start picking up skills that you didn't have before at a higher cost, or you can go make another character. I've been involved in lots of discussions, I think mostly on Brigade, on Facebook, where I've kind of made it kind of clear that I'm a GM who believes in you should deal with your choices as a player or as a GM. And for me, that's one of these things. You get the good and you get the bad. So you're going to have some stats that will have maximums, not based on race. They are based on random dice rolls, and you will get bonuses from those stats that feed into skills that you chose to buy, whether you chose to buy them or not. Actually, so if you choose never to buy stealth, well, your agility and your self-discipline and your presence will still feed into what kind of bonus you have for stealth. So this is also a game where, for the most part, you can try rolling a skill even if you've never gotten it. D&D 3rd edition had some skills that you could do that with, and then some skills you couldn't. In Rolemaster, you can do that with any of them. But do you want to? That's the question. Rolemaster, which I didn't say this in the last video, is a fairly heavy simulation game. They don't do it with a lot of different complicated mechanics. Almost entirely this system is D100, add the relevant skill bonus, look it up on a chart. And there aren't actually all that many charts, especially if you don't go into all these optional books. There aren't that many charts. And we're not talking about attacks. Using Rolemaster Unified off the top of my head, if it's a generic maneuver, roll 101 and higher is a success. 76 to 100 is a partial success. 1 to 75 is a failure, and you don't want to go below that. So that's what you can expect. You'll be picking a profession that's going to set your skill costs. You can pick a race, which will set some stat bonuses. Some of the different Rolemaster games in the family, not this one, not RM2, but this one, have culture packages and things like that, and they designate some skills, everyman skills for race. Like I think one of them had archery, the weapon skill bow, as an everyman skill for elves. That's what made me throw that book away or give it to somebody else, whatever I did. The idea of tying skill knowledge to a race, I just hate that. If you're a civilized, intelligent race, you can learn whatever you want to learn. That fits a lot better for culture. Culture I can understand. So you will have one or more weapon tables with your character, unless the GM wants to hold them for some reason, which becomes a big paper shuffling mess for the GM. I'm not sure I know of any GMs that do that. If I pull out the arms law here, so if you pick, let's not pick that weapon, short sword. If you pick a short sword, your GM is likely to copy this page out to you, which has dice rolls going up and down the vertical side, and the columns are basically different armor levels. So you get the armor level of the opponent, you roll your D100, you add your bonus, you subtract their defense, boom, you look it up. What most people also know about Rolemaster is their little quote here: it's not the bruises that kill. The critical tables are large draw to Rolemaster. And in this particular edition of this book, so they have the most likely relevant critical tables opposite of the weapons table. I don't particularly like using these because then they're half the size. I find a weapon that just has only one of them and copy that out. Here's some puncture critical results. Oh, these aren't very descriptive. That's right. In this edition, they didn't get terribly... Yeah, this is fairly descriptive. Strike to foe's calf, slash muscle. Foe almost falls down. And then it lists that they take some extra damage, and they're stunned for a while, and they've got a penalty until they get healed. Actually, for the ones that I've been reading lately, these are kind of These are kind of undescriptive. Strike to nose. There's a permanent scar. Those eyes are crossed for a moment. Yeah. These are actually kind of lackluster. But then they also have weapon fumble tables. Those can be fun. There's a famous one here about an invisible turtle. A dead invisible turtle. That one's always fun. Anyways, spellcasting in Rolemaster. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the spellcasting book up front. Spellcasting is slow. I was just introducing some other people to Rolemaster the other day, and I said, think of the Lord of the Rings movie. Everyone knows Gandalf is a great wizard. He didn't go around throwing spells left and right. When they got into combat, he was using a shield. To be a spellcaster in Rolemaster takes a lot of time to get to the point where you are hugely dangerous. They have a lag on casting spells. They have like a lot of prep in their spell casting. So if you're, and in the older systems, you didn't have a lot of spell points to cast out of either. They don't do Vancian magic. Sorry. They do PowerPoints. So you might get 1 or 2 PowerPoints per level, and spells cost equal to their level. So, at level 3, you might have 3 or 6 PowerPoints, and if you want to cast an on-level spell, well, then that's 3 points. So you might be spending your entire amount of points on that. And it took 2 rounds of prep in the middle of combat before getting to the last casting. And that specifically might be this edition, and I know that that's also mostly true for the one that's currently in development. RMSS and RMFRP, I might not have that. That might not be that drastic, but yeah, and every spell in this book, some of them are very utilitarian. Some of them are for combat. Healing does not, isn't just, wow, you're perfectly fine. You were about to die a minute ago, and now you're fine. No, Rolemaster is a fatal system. So the magic, again, if someone's coming from an OSR school of thought and just walk into a spellcaster, they may be getting things that they really just did not expect. Just the slowness, and I think a magician doesn't even get a ranged bolt type elemental attack until the 6th level spell. Now, yeah. So I think that pretty much describes what you could expect a bit more specifically out of this. So you'll have to kind of think about, well, what kind of character it is that I want to play, and especially if the edition of Rolemaster that you're playing has culture packages, Rolemaster U does, and things like that. Like, you really need to have a discussion with your GM about what comes with my culture, what's expected of my people, what am I going to be starting off with, will I have, and if they really tie in training into their setting, because that's one of the things that the GMs are kind of encouraged to use, so that people just can't have a pick of any skill anywhere in the book, is to pay attention to the fact that, well, where are they picking up this knowledge? They weren't just walking down the road and then it hit them and, oh, light bulb. Where are they getting this training from? So if your GM is like that, then you'll want to be really strongly considering and talking to your GM about what are some ideas that I have, and what do you think of them, and who would be the best people to do this? Or maybe you like the idea of the people first, and then you try to figure out what would be the best class to play, but or profession, I should say. But in the end, you could make it work. I had a pure fighter start picking up spells once he got to a more moderate level. When his offensive bonus and defense were getting up there, he said, well, let me just start spending some points in spells, and picked out some things really useful for him in combat. I think that's all I've got for right now, and I won't come back to this for probably at least a few days. But hopefully I'll also have an actual plan of what to talk about. So, see you later.